The first time I became aware of Tommy and his battle with the church, I saw him on the steps of the Anglican Cathedral here in Brisbane. You were seeking an audience with the Archbishop to try and draw attention to the abuse that you'd suffered and the practices that were employed at that home in New South Wales. How have your approaches been received by the Anglican Church in general and the Archbishop Aspinall in particular?
Believe it or not, it's been, excuse me, at that time, I'd been fighting a church for 8 years.
Got to the stage where you were sitting out on the front steps of the church with a sign because there was no other alternatives available to you.
I fought the church for 8 years, and I'd asked the Archbishop to talk to me, to have a meeting for 5 years. I kept on battling, and he kept on taking away from me. He took it away from me. He would not talk to me. So I had to stand out the front of the church with a banner saying Anglican Church, duty of care, child abuse. It was the most degrading thing I had to do, that it come to that I had to stand on the street to get the Archbishop to come and see me. But he did. He organised a meeting. We had a meeting. He said he would try everything he could to get the bottom of it. He promised he'd get to the bottom of it. It took him 2 months to get things moving. Then I had another meeting with him, and he said that he agrees with me that the Anglican Church had a moral responsibility to look after the children. However, he didn't say that the Anglican Church had the duty of care to care for the children, to look after the children. He just said that the church had a moral responsibility to do that.
It was my understanding at one stage they were trying to suggest that perhaps the church wasn't actually responsible for the administration of the orphanage.
That's right. They mentioned that the church didn't have the licence to run the home. It was someone else. The church had nothing to do with the children, had nothing to do with anything. They were just happened to own the place that all the abuse was happening.
How do you try and keep moving forward in that situation when you're being stonewalled? And churches are pretty good at stonewalling when they want to, and of course the stories, I guess in particular with the Catholic Church, have been worldwide. We try and put aside your actual childhood history there and just try and compartmentalise it as here is an attempt by you in order to draw attention to this situation that's happening ostensibly within the church. And yet the church, for all intents and purposes, doesn't want to know about it, will battle before finally admitting, yes, maybe we had some kind of moral responsibility there, but we didn't do terribly well. How do you keep yourself moving forward in that respect? Because
True grit.
True grit?
True grit. The truth. I could not think for 1 second that I could go to sleep at night without doing something, getting to the end of this, finding the exact truth to who was supposed to care for the kids, who had the licence. Now, but I know all that. The Anglican Church had the licence, but it took me 8 years to find out. And, I'm still trying to find out certain situations. No one said that they had the duty of care. No one. But the church said they've got a moral responsibility. So what does that mean? They turned a blind eye.
Ignored.
They ignored the abuse. They had a moral responsibility, but they didn't. So now my challenge now in my life is to have them apologise to every child around Australia who was abused in the home, the church to apologise by way of a display ad in newspapers around Australia, and let them know that they are sorry that they turned a blind eye. But I don't know how I'm going to go with that one. I've been pushing that for a few months now, and I'm going to push it harder. I will surround them with letters. I will just keep going and going until they recognise me and fix it up, and hopefully that might be the end of it.
I dare say there's an administrative process that they've been able to draw into play as well in order to try and stonewall, because you've been writing letters for a long, long time and they've been very good at confusing the issue. We should mention, of course, that the church did close down back in the 80s. At one stage...
The home.
The home,
yeah.
sorry, the home. At one stage, the sign out the front that said Church of England Children's Home of Northern New South Wales was taken down.
Well, the thing about that had Church of England North Coast Children's Home, in 8 years of me battling the church, not at any stage did they ever call it that. They called it the North Coast Children's Home. But on the sign, for 4.5 decades, it said Church of England North Coast Children's Home. They denied it. And I showed them photos and they still deny it. And that's what I'm still fighting for too. There's so much to fight for the truth, you know. It's very easy. Now the situation is with the Fitzgerald inquiry, the Royal Commission, coming up. Hopefully I will get a chance to sit before them and tell them the trouble that I had to go through just to find out one little bit of snippet where I could have found out about it 8 years ago.
That whole stonewalling aspect of it's very frustrating. Because all you're trying to do is to seek an apology. That's all you're asking for, isn't it? And an admittance that this happened and that somebody dropped the ball big time.
I have written probably over 1,000 letters. I've got drawers and drawers and drawers of letters. Never anything through the computer, never emails, they were all hard copy. And that's a lot of filing to do. At one stage that one of the ministers I had to write to get information didn't write a letter to me for 12 months. Yet I kept on writing one to him every week. But he never answered. Never. But I had to keep going. I was so down, I was so depressed, I was so unhappy. I could have given it away, Shaun. I surely could have given it away, but I could not do that.
Must have been surrounded by people who were suggesting that trying to convince you that it would be a better idea for you to move on with your life, to put it all behind you. And yet anybody who's been in this situation like you would know how extraordinarily difficult that is to try and leave that behind, because it's been such an overbearing part of your life for so long. Yeah,
I had a lot of people do that. People who care for me.
People who love you and want the best for you.
But, of course, when I start up again, next week when I've sent a letter, they're okay. They're looking after my health, that's all. And I've been pretty strong about it over the last few years. It's a bit of a disaster that I have to stand on the streets, which I'm about to do again. But if I don't do that, nothing will happen. I need the truth, and I need the finish. I even need them to wrap it up, because all the bad things that I've written, all the truthful things that I've written, will be going to the inquiry. And whether I get a Guernsey on that one, I don't know, but it's all going there. At the moment, I got 20 pages of truth, and there's no goodness from them.
Do you actually perceive a light at the end of the tunnel for you?
Yes. Yep. I would say there is. That's what I'm working at.
Yep.
It'll happen.
Yep.
It'll be all good. For every person, 200 children were abused in that home. 200. So we're looking at about 120 in my time, and then we're looking at before and after. So that's about 200, and the church have not denied that. They have agreed that the church, that the ministers and the staff abused 200 children, which is quite remarkable.
You in touch with other children that lived in the orphanage?
No. No, I'm doing this myself. Yeah, I'm doing it myself, yeah. There's, if anyone wanted to know and help, they would have put their hands up, I suppose, but no one has. So I don't blame them. It's pretty daunting. It's pretty hard. Long hours. Sleepless nights, thinking of what you're going to write. Yeah. Thinking of a word, you think, oh, I can put that word in. You know, you get up and
the
write
journalistic aspect of it.
Yeah, you roll over and write it down. Should have taken a photo of it too, I suppose. But I'm going to win this, with or without the inquiry, the Royal Commission,
Yeah.
I'm going to win this. I'm in there. I've put too many years in, 8 years, and I'll win.
Thank you very much for your courage for coming on the program today and talking about this. I know you've been in pain throughout the course of taping this program. Wish you very good luck in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shaun. Thanks for talking to me.
That's all we have time for tonight. You can find the show on the 31 Digital YouTube channel, and I'd love you to like Turning Points on Facebook. Next week, we'll meet a young man who at the age of 8 fled the Hutu Tutsi genocide in Rwanda, then found himself living in a refugee camp in Zambia with 1 million other displaced people, and who was, ultimately, after a 12-year journey, granted emergency refugee status and relocated to Australia. Hope you can join me next week for Turning Points. I'm Shaun Bindley. Good night.